Okay, welcome to day 121 of trying to become a SOC analyst. We're on the LetsDefend platform again, working through the incident responder pathway. We've got SOC130, event log cleared. Persistence is the type, and let's just jump straight into it. So I've assigned the alert to myself already. We've got it up here. It's on the level incident responder, so it's an escalation from level 1 SOC. We've got the hostname Maxton. We've got an internal 172 IP. We've got the command that spawned the alert. So it spawned from wevtutil.exe cl Microsoft Windows PowerShell / operational. So it does look like it's log clearing. Trigger reason detects when event logs are cleared using wevtutil or Clear-EventLog commands. Okay, the escalation reason, level 1 notes, when I connected to the system, I noticed that the number of logs on Event Viewer was low. I couldn't see any logs before the minute when the alert was triggered, and I couldn't see the log of the command that was executed. Additionally, in log management, I saw numerous RDP login attempts from 149.102.244.101 minutes before the alert. So let's get rid of the cam and have a look at the alert. So we've got our endpoint Maxton. Let's load that up. And while that's loading, we'll also load log management. And we'll swap that to basic and put in the endpoint IP. Okay. So we've got a Windows 10 endpoint. And we will just fire up the lab too. So select all the clocks. And we'll let that spawn. Okay. It errored in creating the VM. Let's see if we can spawn it again. It seems to be going through this time. So we'll let that prepare. We've got our endpoint. We've got an external IP as well. Let's grab that IP. And we should have an abuse IP opened up here. Okay, so it's geolocated Poland and it has been flagged in the database. Now our alert was from July 2024. If we look at some of the logs, these are 2024 SQL injection. It was July, right? So these would be fitting in our timeline. So it was malicious at the time of the alert, and we can see brute force was one of the reasons. So, okay. Now that endpoint's still spawning up. We can look at the logs while that's going through. So we're seeing the RDP connections on port 3389. So we know this is remote desktop. And if we have a look, 4625 is a failure. So account failed to log on. Username is correct, but the password is wrong. User LetsDefend. So we'll go through the logs a little bit here. It's targeted at LetsDefend again. LetsDefend again. So it does look like it's not spraying different usernames. It's targeting the LetsDefend username and just spraying passwords. So we've got quite a few pages of logs here. So we'll need to find the successful logon, if there was one, but based on their alert, we assume there's going to be. So it's still just targeting the LetsDefend username. We're looking for 4624, and there we go. So logon type 10, remote, and 4624 is a successful logon from that IP. at the LetsDefend. So the brute force was a brute force attempt at user LetsDefend, and it was successful. So I will copy that timestamp. Okay, so we know there was a successful remote logon. Now let's go through the rest of the logs. Okay, well, this is the log that spawned our alert, actually, right directly afterwards. And that's the exact same time as the login, okay. Same again for clearing. Looks like we've got a couple more logs. Process create. Okay, so that's all the log clear commands. And what have we got here? Oh, that's just the firewall log, so we can ignore those. We've got another OS log here. That's the failed login. We've got a DNS. And lastly, DNS again, but we're not seeing what they're resolved to. Okay. Now our endpoint should be spawned by now, so let's open in a new tab. We'll start the playbook in a second. If we go up to terminal history, we see some recon. So who am I? Who are my groups? Checking connectivity. Password equals read hosts as secure string. New user test password. Oh, okay, so they're trying to obfuscate putting in a password there. Is that read host as string? Net user administrator password. New user equals test. Admin group equals administrators. So I wonder, is this just obfuscation that they're trying to make it as a variable? So admin group's going to equal administrators and new members going to be tests, or new user, sorry, is going to be tests. So the command ends up being add local group member administrators. So add tests to administrator group, but they've obfuscated it by doing it via variables. Maybe that's just a way of not getting caught if there's an alert spawn for anyone adding to group administrators. And logs as well, they've tried to set that to get event log list for each item, and I'm guessing it's going to be clear. Yeah, so the clear, and then it sets the variable. Okay, so we do have the endpoint. Does look like we've caught the majority of the logs. Actually, this is what I was after, the console history. We want the PowerShell history, which, well, instead of navigating it so it's in recent files, but we would navigate to LetsDefend, app data, roaming, Microsoft Windows, PowerShell, and then PS read, and it's in there. And this will give us the log of all the PowerShell commands that were run. So we've got the recon, we've got all of this captured already in our logs. Then this is the actual script that was ran. List, continue silently, and then clear. So this is the script that was clearing all the logs. Okay, so let's start the playbook. It does look like there was a brute force successful login, and then logs were cleared by the remote desktop login. So let's create the alert, and the playbook will guide us through what they want. But I think we already have a fairly good understanding of what's occurred on this one. So identify potential defense evasion activity. So that's clearing of the logs, and also some of the command obfuscation. So it's Windows. For Windows, check the logs. Okay, determine the type of defense evasion techniques involved, modification or disabling of security measures. So we're looking for anything relating to clearing of the logs. So I've got modify authentication process, modify system image, modify registry, indicator removal. Could be most likely that. Impair defenses, hijack execution, permissions, policy modification, access token, or abuse elevation. So I should have a MITRE there open. So we'll click onto this, and we're gonna, the two that we should investigate is going to be indicator removal and impair defenses. So defense impairment I already have open as it's the most common one that we deal with. It's from whatever the last alert was. So it might actually be a technique listed in here. What was it that we're looking for? Impair defenses or indicator removal. We could probably search. No, okay, and impair. Prevent command. History logging. Adversaries may impair command, history logging, or hide commands they run on a compromised system. I just want to rule out indicator removal. So we'll just look that up. Oops. And we want it as enterprise. Okay, so in addition to clearing system logs, an adversary may clear the command history of a compromised account to conceal the actions undertaken during the invasion. Various command interpreters keep track. Okay, so it's like clearing bash history in that example. Can we backdate? Let's go back to the indicator removal. Okay, these are our sub techniques here. File deletion, time stomp, clear mailbox, clear persistence, clear command history, clear network connection history and configurations. No, I think we're going to go with impair defenses. IOC, do we have any IOCs? We do. Have we checked it on VirusTotal, Abuse IP? We have. LetsDefend TI. The last alert I did, surprisingly, rarely you ever find anything on the LetsDefend threat indicators. But last alert I did find something on there. So let's just check here. No, nothing came off this one. Okay, but we've got it on Abuse IP anyway. So we're going to say it was suspicious. We saw brute force in 2024. Determine the scope. So we want to check on the logs. This IP that performed, that's not the IP, my mistakes. We'll go back to the main page. This IP that performed the brute force, we want to check that it's only hitting the .95 IP. So a quick scan through the logs, .95, .95, and .95. So the scope is only this one endpoint. So is there more than one affected device? No, there isn't. Should the device be isolated? Yes, it should. So on the endpoint, we will go to containment and toggle that on. Okay, next, add our artifact. Well, luckily we have the IP in our clipboard, and so remote desktop login. We could, just thinking what other artifacts we need to add. Where are my logs? Potentially the PowerShell log. No, I think we'll put that in the notes actually. So we'll just add the IP as our artifact. Next, I'll pause the video and write some notes. Okay, you won't know this, but that did take quite a while. Pause the video while I write up some notes. And I want to go over a couple of things. Sometimes it's not until you're documenting the case that you realize that you've missed something. And I just want to point that out before we go through the notes. We saw in the PowerShell history, the commands that were ran, we saw the recon from who am I. I initially glanced at the top here, and it's hard when you're dealing with a lot of labs. A lot of the time you can assume some of the commands are run by the lab creator, and I saw Sysmon getting set up and just sort of assumed that. But looking above that, you can actually see that they disabled real-time scanning, disabled scanning, turned the firewall off. So this looks like this was ran by their attacker as well. And with Sysmon, it looks like they reinstalled with a new configuration. Now I opened up the configuration and it does look like it's quite thorough. It's 123,000 lines. But there could easily be one thing that's not flagged in there that they don't want logged. Or it could be a way of them just overriding the logs, but it does look like they've ran that. And the other thing that I picked up was they've added, we figured out that they added the test account and added it as an administrator. And as I was writing up the notes, I thought, I never mentioned about how they could do that, because they hadn't, from all accounts, they just logged into LetsDefend. We didn't know what type of user that was. And so who am I / groups would have told us, or we can look here, it was an administrator account. So that's how they were able to create a secondary administrator account. So those are the two things I wanted to cover. And the last thing was when I was mapping it to the MITRE attack techniques, it does look like I probably should have mapped to clear Windows event logs 1070, which if we go back to our MITRE attack map, indicator removal. So I went back through the playbook and changed to indicator removal as my choice. So we'll see how this all plays out now. So let's go through the log. So mapped to MITRE attack, we've got credential access, brute force, password guessing, lateral movement, remote control, remote desktop protocol, execution PowerShell, defense evasion, valid accounts, local accounts, persistence, create account, local account, persistence, account manipulation, discovery, permission groups discovery, disable or modify tools, disable or modify system firewall, indicator blocking, and clear Windows event logs. We've got the what? Attacker brute forced RDP from 149.102.244.101 against Maxton 172 internal IP. Successful login at 6:35 AM on account LetsDefend, confirmed local administrator, post access, enumeration via who am I and who am I groups, elevated PowerShell session, launched via admin rights, backdoor account creation, user test, added test to administrators and remote desktop users, reset built-in administrator password to password explanation. Disabled Windows Defender real-time protection and script scanning. Disabled firewall via netsh legacy and AdvFirewall. Reinstalled Sysmon with replacement config from C drive Sysmon. Then cleared all event logs via PowerShell, Clear-EventLog and wevtutil.exe, and machine was quarantined. Okay, we've got when, so we've got the timestamps, we've got the brute force login, we've got the successful RDP login, and we've got the alert triggered for the PowerShell event log swiped. Where, so we've got the host Maxton, we've got the 172 internal IP, and we've got the lol bin that was used, the wevtutil.exe, and also noting the config file that was reinstalled on Sysmon. Who, we've got their attacker IP 149. Confirm malicious brute force. Compromised account, let's defend. Confirm local administrator, and backdoor account test. Why, confirm true positive. Attacker brute forced RDP and gained access via a confirm local administrator account, elevated PowerShell session used for all privileged operations, persistence established via backdoor account and credential modification, defenses evaded via defender and firewall disable, Sysmon config replaced, event logs fully cleared to destroy forensics evidence. And just a suggestion for the escalation is we can use MFT timestamp to review what went on. So we can load up using Zimmerman tools and get the MFT extracted and have a look at that. So we'll copy these notes. We'll finish the playbook. Sorry, that was quite the mouthful. Okay, it's complaining about something in the logs not being defanged. Commonly, I find I have issues with MITRE causing that. So we might just try and log that. That's gone through. Not sure why it does that. It's rather annoying. We will close our alert. We're going to say it was a true positive. Paste in our notes again. And see how we went. Remember, I did change the defense evasion. So let's see if we're right or wrong with that last minute change. Okay, so it was correct to change that. So that was lucky. And as I pointed out, sometimes you don't notice until you start documenting it, especially if you're trying to record it live. But all right, let's go through it. Just summarize. True positive, yes. Should the device be isolated? Yes. Determine the scope. There was only the one endpoint affected. IOC reputation, was it suspicious or malicious? Yes. Did we have any IOCs? Yes. Determine the type of defense evasion techniques involved, modification or disabling of security measures. So initially I was thinking the defense impairment, but I swapped it to indicator removal. And determine the OS Windows. So that was all pretty straightforward. There are notes. Now that we've finished the alert, we have access to the security report. So this is basically the answer by LetsDefend. It's their official incident response for the case. I like to just quickly go over it to see if there's anything that we missed in there. So we've got initial access, reputation check, containment, and lessons learned. So it doesn't look too in depth. Let's just speed run it. So for artifacts, they got the IP. They looked at the logs that, yep, they were clearing the logs. They found the brute force. Then they found their account that it was logged in on. They found that the reputation was bad. We've also confirmed that. They then contained it. Okay, what have we got here? Open event viewer. After connecting to the system, you can search event 1102. Oh, okay, that's the deletion event, the log clear. We didn't confirm that, but it was in the level 1 escalation notes, so I don't think that's a huge drama. again, what are they checking here? Again, just that we saw this in the Sysmon logs, the clear security. So we already saw that. Then they went to the console history, which we saw, and then we could see all the commands. We saw that. So we covered that. They created the new user. I mean, we covered all that. They were checking connectivity. They checking their who they were logged in as and what rights they had. I mean, again, we covered all that. This was to clear all the logs, operating, and then they just ran through the playbook. So I'm pretty confident that we got everything correct there. Containment, lesson learned. Okay, in the artifacts, I could have put the user. I could have put the user that was added. So that's probably one lesson to learn there. All right, great. Overall, though, I think that was a fairly straightforward case, and I'm quite happy with how my investigation went compared to how their official incident response is written up. So I'll see you on day 122, I think we're up to, and hopefully we'll become a SOC analyst soon. Just keep grinding. Thanks for watching.